Oh, hello there. Well, this is awkward. If you don't often watch my channel, you may not have noticed that, well, I've been away for a while. A long while. And it all has to do with this. No, not the shoe. This. I want to talk about Twitch, and one problem that's kept me really busy for almost a year. It's something that hardly anyone ever talks about because, well, it's a bit boring. But it's something that I genuinely care about so much that I spent the last 10 months of my life vigorously analyzing it, talking to streamers and Twitch people about it, and even working hard to try and make my own solution. So I just kind of want to talk about it and share with you the solution that I made because, well, let's just get into it. And if you're wondering, like, oh man, like, where's the regular tech stuff that you usually do? Don't worry, like, next video will be, like, exactly the same as all the others. I just kind of really want to talk about this, okay? So then, let's talk about Twitch, a platform all about live streaming. Now, in a previous video, I talked with you about like what live streaming is and why I really like it. But in short, as long as you have yourself one of these to look into and one of these to talk into, any idiot can just sit and flail about in front of their computer whilst people watch and chat about it online. There's a whole bunch of variety. Like you can have people playing games live. You can have people watching people playing games live. Or you can have a chair watching people playing games live. What I really love about streaming is how it gives you like a community. That very first Twitch stream that I ever watched was by Daniel the Demon. He's a really great, very energetic guy. I remember coming into his stream, talking about the game and what was on screen. And lo and behold, he would actually kind of like respond to what we were talking about, which may not really seem all that special to you, but here on YouTube, you can spend like 5 or 10 minutes writing out a very thoughtful, interesting comment on like a video where someone specifically said, please let me know what you think. Write it in the comments below. I'll read all of them. And then still get nothing out of it but your own like. Then when I started streaming for myself, I got to know even more great people. Like you have a theme who's a genius in languages and has helped me a ton with like my quest to try and learn Japanese. You have Tribal, who's been there with me since day one. Like I'm talking literally day one until now. We've been through so much together. You have like a Emil who's carried me more times than I can count in Apex and whose art is still in the background of my phone. And then you have like so many more of you guys, like you have Erebus, Rahab, or more recently you have like Macy James and Brownie, who's been helping me heaps into like getting into Age of Empires 2. And then I haven't even mentioned all the cool creators that I've met, like Joey Zero, who I've learned so many cool visual effects from, Xeno Galleon, who I've done some really fun collaborations with. So then if Twitch is this really awesome kick-ass site where you can meet all these really cool people, then what's the problem? Well, you see, all these connections that form like the backbone of Twitch, the big reason that I use this site, are all kind of like the exceptions rather than the norm. And I'm not alone in this experience. Forming a proper connection between viewers and streamers has actually been so problematic on Twitch that it's gotten its own word, parasocial relationships, where just imagine that instead of a streamer, I'm actually like a cashier at like a local store, right? You're one of the people who's like visiting my store every day, you know? Like you may feel like you know me very well because, well, I'm the only cashier you're seeing every day. Now, naturally, I will be friendly with you whenever I see you because, you know, it's nice to be friendly. And at the same time, it's also like if you see repeat customers, it's always good to see a friendly face. However, you wouldn't really walk up to your cashier on the streets and show up to their house uninvited, which is something that has happened to quite a few streamers already. Now, these parasocial relationships have actually been discussed in great length already, and it's not really a problem that's very unknown because, well, you know, first of all, it's something that affects like most people on the website, and secondly, it's kind of like it helps everyone if people are all aware of it, but there's a similar problem that happens between streamers which no one really talks about, where behind all the fancy camera angles, music, and lighting often sits a rather lonely, isolated person just talking to their computer in their room. Now, I want to make it absolutely clear that I'm not trying to make you feel bad, but just notice the difference between these camera angles right here and this one, which is taken at the exact same time. The reason I'm showing you this is because I feel that this right here conveys the idea the best as to how streamers who can, like at a push of a button, stream to hundreds or thousands of people, how they can still feel lonely sometimes. Because for the longest time, it was something that I never properly, truly understood. But then when I would speak to other creators, a vast majority of them would kind of say that, yeah, I feel actually quite alone and isolated. And I think the reason behind that is actually quite simple. Because, you know, if we take the example of the cashier that we were just talking about, if you're a cashier, you're likely working with other cashiers as well. And after work or like during your break, you can kind of sit together and talk about, you know, how your day was, how to handle the interesting customers, how some of the store's policies can be really annoying sometimes. However, most streamers just stream alone in their room until the work is done, after which they're still alone in their room. And I think that's a problem. Because how can you be creative in this creative industry when there's no one to bounce ideas back and forth with? How can you step out of like that tunnel vision and see the bigger picture without having someone else around? I can name over a dozen really good people who've just up and abandoned their entire passion because they just felt they were stuck, they couldn't find a way out, and they had no one to help them. And that I think is bad. But not as bad as speaking with some of the young creators out there who literally get preyed upon by fully grown adults and then don't know how to handle it. Because, I mean, like, how could you bring up to your friends who don't do streaming, like, hey, you know, there's this person out there who's, like, really supportive. They've given me, like, hundreds of dollars right now, and they kind of always want to know where I am. How do I deal with that? And it's not just the doom and gloomy stuff like that, but if I think about the most fun content I've ever made or watched, it's always like the really cool crossover episodes where I can see the two worlds that I love like kind of combine and make something really cool, or discover a really cool new creator with new content I can watch. It's like, how much are we missing out of as audience and creators for just sitting in our rooms being miserable? Now, it isn't just me who's complaining about this. Even Twitch sees this as one of their main problems to solve right now. They may not really talk about it in their keynotes and speeches, because I mean, it's a bit strange to be like, come stream on our platform where everyone is a bit sad. But whenever I go to TwitchCon, I can actually speak in private with the people who run the website, and they very clearly say that this right here is one of their main problems. That's why over the last few years, they've been rolling out features left, right, and center for people to kind of work together by knocking onto their streams, or, you know, doing the stream together thing where, you know, you have to share chat, and judging by how familiar you all seem to be to these features, yeah, they haven't really worked all that well. And that's because the problem isn't necessarily that streamers can't talk to each other or can't work together. It's more that there's not really a reason to. Like, would you talk to the stranger sitting next to you on the bus if that stranger was on the other side of the planet and you'd have to text them? So in order to connect all these people together with each other, you kind of have to have them do something together. Like, remember those first days of schools when you had like the team building exercises, which everyone thought were kind of lame and never really worked, but then because everyone thought they were lame, they kind of like bonded you together on the lameness of the exercises, and then they kind of did work? Like, basically what we need to do is we need to find a way for creators to collaborate with each other. This right here has been the big question that Twitch has been trying to answer for basically years now. And as you saw, Twitch has been putting teams of really, really smart people onto this task to create some really, really good tools for it, which haven't really worked. So I figured it was about time for me to take a crack at it. Even though I don't really have the tools and the resources and the smartness that all the people there at Twitch have, what I could do was just go up to the creators and ask them. If you've been around last year's Rotterdam TwitchCon or San Diego TwitchCon, you may have seen me walk around with this notebook right here and this pen and just talk to whoever one I could speak with. Basically what I would do is just walk up to people and say like, hey, what's going on? Why aren't you collaborating? Well, I mean, not exactly in that tone, but just kind of like going around asking about people's experience with some structured questions. Now, I'd love to show you all the notes that I have in here, which are a lot. However, a lot of these notes are like very, very personal, so you're literally just gonna have to believe me that there are so many people I've spoken with, and this notebook is like full of things. You can ask the people at TwitchCon that have been there. So let us go and answer once and for all, why aren't creators out there collaborating? I call it the networking space problem, which will make sense in a moment, because I quite like to visualize things in order to understand them better. So let us imagine streamers as being like, you know, their own little planet in this vast galaxy. And what we want to do, just like interplanetary travel, is we want to connect these things together. But it's hard. When it comes to space travel, the best thing that we can do is like travel to our orbiting moon or space station. And funnily enough, with creators, it's the exact same thing. Where sometimes you have this thing that I'd like to call orbiting creators, where you have like a big creator and you have them collaborate with some people, and you think like, hey, these people have solved collaboration. They know how to travel through space. But then you watch for a couple of days, weeks, months, years, and you kind of come to realize that they only travel here. They never really venture out because it's hard. So then, what makes this hard? Well, first of all, if you want to leave your planet, if you want to travel through space, you have to overcome this thing called gravity. For streamers, the gravity that's kind of like keeping them streaming alone is basically just the ease of it. Why would I go out and like try and like reach out to someone, contact them, to coordinate what we're gonna do, think about content that we can do together, and then try and coordinate to be there at the exact same time, which has never happened anywhere ever, when I can just go ahead and just push a button right here and I'm live. The extra energy that's needed for collaborations to happen is what keeps a whole bunch of creators just streaming by themselves. What you see is that with most creators in just day-to-day streaming, they're already limited by this. They will not try and overcome the gravity because I just have to do the other stream. However, there is a big desire by a lot of people that they do want to collaborate at some point. So, with that in mind, some people do try and venture out and make it happen. However, overcoming the gravity was just the first problem. Space is big, and the planets are kind of relatively small. So you can go and send out your rocket ship somewhere and then try and figure out how to connect to someone and kind of just end up being lost. Missing your target is something that happens a lot with creators, and it's something that I have plenty of experience with myself. Let's say that you want to, make a collaboration with me. How would you do that? Would you go out and, write a comment underneath this video, or whenever I'm live, like type in the chat, like, hey, do you want to collaborate? Well, I mean, if you were to do that, that would kind of put me on the spot, and I wouldn't really be happy with that. Oh well, then just go and send me a message via like my email or my Twitter, which definitely have only one single inbox and not a second one, which is completely hidden and doesn't tell you when you actually have messages. Oh well, but there's also this thing called Discord, where you can just join my Discord and then go up there and then click on me and then send me a friend request when I don't even know who you are. What is the best way right here to connect to someone? Honestly, there really isn't a good answer, because for every single creator it differs. There are people who have all sorts of ways to reach out to them, and you can send them a message and they'll respond to them right away. But that's also something that can get really overwhelming when you have a whole bunch of people messaging you, and responding to messages isn't really creating new content. So some people are just completely closed off and you have no way to reach out to them, so you can just kind of keep on drifting everywhere the entire time without reaching out to anywhere. And if you send enough rockets out there that don't connect to any planet, at a certain point in time, you'll just be like, this is absolutely hopeless. Sometimes you have this moment where creators do connect very well. However, as they send out a collaboration request to try and connect these planets, all of a sudden they find that, well, it's a little bit too far away. I have that a lot of times when I go to TwitchCon, that I find people who are insanely cool. However, they do things that are so different from the content that I make that I don't really know what I'm supposed to do with them if we were to collaborate. Sometimes though, you can get lucky. You find someone out there who's close to you in terms of content, but as you send out a rocket to actually make the collaboration happen, all of a sudden the planetary defenses activate and you're stopped before you can reach your goal. What happened here? Well, one really interesting thing is that when speaking with creators, you kind of find that they all share the same story. They started out creating for fun, then they made some friends along the way, and then one of those friends tried to use the friendship to grow their own channel, and ever since then, they don't really trust anyone anymore, so they keep people out. But then you wonder, if this happens to so many people that basically every single streamer has this story, how is this happening? And that's why I found something really interesting. Let's say that you're out here being a new streamer. You just started, and now you kind of want to collaborate. What we've seen so far is that collaborations are already kind of hard, but they're even harder if you have no reputation to speak of. I've been in a lot of really good collaborations where the person that I was with, we could kind of supplement each other in places that, the other fell short. However, I've also been in some really bad collaborations where we'd constantly talk over each other or just be completely quiet the entire time, and it just wasn't fun. If there's one thing that people don't want to see from a collaboration, it's just two people being miserable and waiting it out. So I can understand that people want to have someone that they know has some good collaboration skills. But how can you get collaboration skills if you've never collaborated before? I asked the creators I spoke with, it's like, what do you do? Well, the overwhelming answer was, if you're new and you need to collaborate with people, you just gotta go and fake it till you make it. Basically going in on false premises to someone else to collaborate with them. Now, I do want to make it very clear that I'm not at all trying to lay the blame here on new streamers who are kind of trying to fake their way into the industry. The point of this galaxy is to try and find where things are going wrong, and if you know them, see how you can fix them. For example, the people who feel it's too much of a hassle to get started, well, you could look into making collaborations easier. Make it easier to connect with people, make it easy to get started. For the people who don't know where to go and the people who are new, well, maybe you could make it easier to meet other creators. Make something where creators can kind of get to know each other such that the connections between them can be better established. The people who feel they're too far apart, maybe you can decrease the distance between Twitch, where right now it feels like between categories, you don't really go to another game. Does that really have to be the case? For the new streamers, we can make some collaboration practices, and then for the people who are kind of protective and scared of the world, if we can offer some very clean collaborations where it's very transparent and fair, so what you're getting and what we're asking, then honestly, I feel that should make it a bit easier for these people to open up. Speaking of opening up, remember the team building exercises I was talking about earlier in the video? Well, basically the entire point of them is bring people together by giving them shared goals. If we can introduce some shared goals to the streamers where, aside from them just streaming on the same platform, they feel like they share something more in common, maybe we can't entirely take the protective barrier away, but perhaps we can make the protective barrier just not be me, but be us. With this, we right now have our points of improvement that a solution could focus on. What kind of solution? Well, a solution that tackles each and every single one of these points right here, and also has the potential to be one of the best ways for channels to be discovered on Twitch. And guess what? I've been working on exactly that solution. However, you may have already noticed that this video has been quite long and also kind of information dense. So what I wanted to do is just for today, take all of this in, and then we'll talk about the solution in another video. Before that though, I wanted to say thank you guys so much for watching this video right now to the end and listening all to it. I know that this may not be everyone's interest, but it is something that I really care about. Because behind all these like simple drawings that I've made are actual people who are right now being miserable in a way that they don't need to be. And I know, because I've been one of them. And I wish someone would do something about it then. So I'm doing something about it now. That did come at a cost, however, of my upload cycle, so thank you so much for being patient with me. We're sort of back, but still, you know, thanks for being patient with me. Thanks for listening to me. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you all next time.